Hi everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm here today with a video on the faux metal but with glitter embossing powder. Jennifer McGuire did this technique I think last week, and then also she's done it before, maybe a year ago. But I wanted to try it today with a glitter embossing powder to see if it would work with that. So I'm doing this card for the Joy Claire Stamps Challenge, and this month is shapes. That's the challenge. You can use any shapes you want, and then there's also a color palette, which I'll be kind of playing on as well. But I am using the Scotch Treasure stamp set, and it is a Bible journaling set. And I'm just pulling off the jewels from this set, and I've loaded them onto acrylic blocks. And now I'm going to stamp them on a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white cardstock. Now I have a piece of black fun foam underneath this, as well as a piece of cardstock on top of that to catch any extra ink that falls off the side. And I am stamping in Memento Tuxedo Black dye ink. I'll be coloring these in with alcohol markers, some very jewel toned alcohol markers. So I am using this alcohol friendly ink to stamp all of my little images in, and I'm just randomly stamping these, turning them different directions to kind of get a different pattern paper here. Now there are 5 different jewels in this stamp set, and I'm using all 5 of them. Now to make these look like they're different jewels here and there, I'm just turning them, and I'm also making sure that I don't put the same jewel too close to one that's already stamped. So I'm kind of spacing them out a little bit as well. There you can see I have my pattern paper completely stamped in, and now I'm going to color these in. So I chose a marker for each jewel, and I'm just going to color in that jewel with that same color all the way across this background that I've made here. So with the diamonds, I chose, it's like an antique white color, like a cream. And I've colored in all the diamonds. Then for these oblong rectangles, I'm using more of a turquoise, darker turquoise here. And then I've got a jewel toned green, a yellow, and also a wine color. And I'm just choosing different jewels, coloring them all in with the same alcohol marker, and then I move on to my next one. So this went by very quickly. Since I didn't have to switch out alcohol markers so often, this was just a snap to color up. And I'm also not doing any blending or any shading or anything, just one marker per jewel. So again, very clean and simple here. So once I had all of my background colored up here, it was time to move on to creating the sentiment. So I used an Inspired by Stamping die set, and I cut out this oval, and this is chipboard. It's kind of it's the backing to a paper pad. So it's pretty thick, but it also has a little bit of shine on it as well. And I'm going to be using this Wow Metallic Gold Sparkle Embossing Powder, and it is gorgeous, but it has a little bit of glitter in it. So I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. This was kind of a test, if you will. So I've attached a handle to the back of this oval here, just with some double-sided adhesive. It will peel right off the back since this kind of has a shiny texture to it. It doesn't stick very well. And I've just covered this entire oval with my Versamark ink pad. Now I am just sprinkling over this metallic gold embossing powder, and this is going to take a few layers here. So this takes some time to do this. Now I went ahead and sprinkled that right over that oval, and then I'm just going to heat set it. Now I am using a glitter embossing powder, and if I take this heat gun straight to that powder, I'm going to have glitter flying everywhere. So I always heat it up from the back a little bit just to kind of get that glitter stuck in place. And then I'll come around to the front, and I'll heat emboss from the front and secure everything in place and melt it down like it's supposed to be. Now, even though I did this each and every time I heat set this, I still had glitter everywhere by the time I ended up with this, or by the time I finished this card. It was just everywhere. And that's just part of working with a glitter embossing powder. Now you do have to have this handle on the back of there. Don't try and use your tweezers because it will indent your embossing powder as it heats up. And if you try and just hold it with your fingers, you're going to get burnt. So this handle is kind of a must. So this is just an extra piece of chipboard, like I said, and I just attached it to the back. And now I'm going in with my second coat. I've let this embossing powder dry and completely cool down. I came back in with another layer of Versamark ink, and then I just sprinkled on more embossing powder. I'm working over a coffee filter. This just makes everything a little bit more contained, so I don't have quite as big as a mess. And I heat set again from the back, and then I came around to the front, and this is my second layer of embossing powder. Now I am just going to go through, because each and every time you layer this up it gets a little bit smoother, and I'm not going to show you every time I put my Versamarking pad down and every time I sprinkle on embossing powder. So here you'll see I'm moving on to my third coat. This is my third coat next. You can see my second coat is still really bumpy, so I need to go in with more. This is my third coat, the final result. And I just shake it around to kind of cool it off a little bit. There's the third coat. Now we're on to the fourth coat in this one. You can see it's still a little lumpy. And this took quite a few coats. This is the fifth coat here. So I'm getting a little bit smoother, but it still needs a little bit more work. So I am now moving on to the sixth coat. So here is the sixth coat. And this probably would be okay, but I wanted to go back in with one more coat and touch up the edges. And once you get to this point, you do need to heat set around the edges too. So you can see here, I'm heat setting this final time. This was my 7th time, and this was all I did here. So I'm heat setting up this final time, and I'm not only going to go right on top, but I'm also going to turn it and go around the edges and really round out those edges and make sure that all the powder is melted down so I don't end up with chips in it later on down the road. So I'm just going to turn it every which way and make sure all the powder is melted, especially on those edges. And if you want to go around those edges, once you get to like your 4th and 5th time, you can start doing that as well. So finally, with my 7th coat, I was happy. You could go in with another one if you wanted to, but I was happy with 7. So it does take quite a few coats, especially with this glitter embossing powder, because you have those little bits of glitter in it. So of course it's going to take a few more coats of that to really get it smoothed out. Now I am using this brand new Hello Sentiment stamp set to put on a sentiment right on top of this metal embellishment that I made. So I used my Versamark ink. I did prep this surface with my embossing bag, and now I'm just sprinkling on some black embossing powder right on top of that. And I didn't have any trouble with this sticking anywhere. I really made sure I let that embellishment that I made cool really well beforehand. And then I stamped down on it and put on my embossing powder. And again, I prepped that surface with my embossing bag. Now I'm coming in, I'm holding very carefully with my tweezers. I would highly suggest leaving your little handle on. I forgot to do that. So I took a chance with my tweezers and it worked out okay for me, but I would just suggest leaving that handle on. So I went ahead and stamped that down, heat set it, and there I've got my little Hello Sentiment ready to go. Now this doesn't look like much just in the video, but if you've seen it in real life, it kind of amazes me, because you think that it's going to be raised up, that hello is going to be raised up, but it looks like one flat embellishment when you look at it. And I'll give you a little bit of sense of that if you stick around for the photos at the end of this video. But to finish off this card, I went ahead and added some double-sided adhesive to the back of that panel that I had colored in earlier, and I attached that to an A2 top folding white card base. Now I am just attaching this metal embellishment that I made onto a piece of wine cardstock that I die cut with that same Inspired by Stamping die set. I've added fun foam to the back of this along with double-sided adhesive, and I'll just pop that up right in the center of the card. Now to finish this card off, I'm just going to add a couple layers of Wink Stella to each one of my little jewels for a little bit more sparkle. And after I got that on, I just called this card done. I didn't want to add anything more to take away from that embellishment because it is gorgeous. So that completed the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, I will leave you with this close-up and a few pictures of the finished card. And also, I really tried to capture how awesome that embellishment is that I made, and I hope you can get a better sense of it in the photos. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog. That link will be in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting.